Good evening, class. I would like to share this remaining lecture of our module in lesson 4.3 or lecture 4.3 on module 4. And this tackles on the analytical tools, the last two remaining analytical lens that we need to study on that we need to study in relation to our being able to analyze the agribusiness, the dynamics of the agribusiness system. This module is on rapid market assessment and, of course, the Porter's five forces model. No? So we have discussed on uh, commodity systems approach. We have discussed on industry analysis. We also have discussed specifically on value chain and supply chain. And this time we will go into this firm specific or industry specific assessment tool. We call this market assessment. Now, market assessment or the rapid market assessment, or in short, RMA. Okay. Now, what is RMA? RMA is a research method that quickly maps out the player's market position in a value chain with emphasis on market and marketing systems. In other words, um, this rapid market assessment, from the word rapid market assessment, it really scans through the market very quickly, but taking into consideration or taking note of the very important dynamics that is essential in being able to penetrate a very fragile or even very volatile market very quickly before it change in texture and structure, and for you to be able to be more or less in sync or even ahead of the competitive landscape. So this is we call rapid market assessment. Now, flexibility in one of the characteristics of this research is in the number of respondents in rapid market assessment. Yeah, we markets visited, informant selected, and the duration of the study according to the purpose of the RMA. In other words, these are the things that you need to take into consideration in terms of validity, in terms of credibility, and even defensibility of your analysis. Depends largely on the number of respondents, the market also you are actually looking at, and of course the duration of the study. Because if it's very say for example already uh, quite a number of periods ago already, now it won't bear the representativeness of the dynamics of the market. Okay, we need to be very quick and very specific and very target focused. Actually, the rapid market assessment is actually widely used in government projects to determine what interventions to make for private companies, what particular target market to pursue, and of course for organization trying to know the dynamics of the market. There is no standard format for market assessment, but we just have to take into consideration how the essential parameters of uh, the market assessment will change with respect to the important variables that we are looking at also in the market, like price, quality sought, and also the growth area and something like that, and many other things. There are seven of them. No? Now, the objective of this RMA is to investigate the market structure and determine the position of the players. Okay, in other words, you are going to do RMA because that will position you strategically in terms of where you are going to enter and where is going to be more there is not much friction in trying to enter a very dynamic market. An example of this is a vegetable market, which changed within a month's time, within less than 2 months, for example. Change from shortage to surplus to whatever situations, and prices also are very erratic in many markets of vegetable, say commodity systems in the Philippines. Okay, now we before we proceed on the methodology of doing a market RMA, we might as well review on the uh, various definitions of marketing as defined and based on its purpose also and function. One is like marketing by purpose, finding out customers. Marketing by function refers to all activities and services. Remember, when we look at the marketing system, we look at from the marketing purpose and from the marketing function. Okay, the marketing purpose, of course, is who is the target customer. The marketing function also the essential services that are there in order to help us penetrate the market. And of course, the rapid market assessment comes in two perspectives being shown here. One is customer base, it could also be movement base. Okay? So remember, the market assessment focus can be customer base or movement base, meaning to say the product must be delivered to the customer at a very specific time. If it is customer based, meaning we need to take a look at who is the target market specifically for that product. Now, rice value chain, for example, needs around 9 intermediaries to reach the final customer. Okay? Can you imagine 9 intermediaries? So that means to say we need to see where the growth areas are in across these intermediaries. For vegetable, there are 3 to 4 intermediaries. In other words, these are the different nodes that the value chain or the supply chain has to pass through before it can finally reach the end market. So we know already that as the number of intermediaries increase, the piling up of cost and revenue will also accumulate, and down the line, it will impact on the final price at the end of the chain. Okay. Now, following this concept, we need to understand how decisions are made because these small decisions make them strong or very influential player in the value chain. Therefore, the underlying principles of how players decide is primarily based on core concepts of marketing. What are the core concepts of marketing? Okay. Now, the core concepts of marketing is that you need to have a solid foundation of the sum of this fundamental core concept. Okay. What are these? Needs, wants, demands. What are needs? What are these needs? These are basic human requirement for air, for food. You cannot survive if your needs are not met, while wants are directed to specific object that might satisfy the need. But once you can do away with wants, but you cannot do away with what you need. For example, air. You cannot do away with air. You cannot live without water. So these are needs. But wants, well, if you have extra resources, maybe you can take a look at you can consider your wants, and maybe you can also buy them if resources would allow. And this what you call also was demands. Okay, what are demands? These are wants for a specific product backed by ability to pay. Remember, demand can only be a demand if you satisfy the wants backed with your purchasing power. Okay, so offering and brands, these are also key concepts. What are offerings? Can be combination of products, services, information, and experience. Offering. In other words, the utility of the product. Mas may gamit sa produkto. In other words, what they're offering is space, it's time, it's convenience, it's the product itself, or experience. Maybe the ambience is good. No? So another is brand. What are brands? Brand is an offering from a known source. Example, say McDonald's or Jollibee, for example. Now from the words of it, it will rang a different tone. For example, you say Starbucks. You know already that it's a brand of coffee, freshly brewed coffee or something like that. If you see Jollibee, you will already think of like hamburger, like chicken, fried chicken, and other things. Okay, so that will associate you in terms of the product they're offered because of their name. Okay, so another is value satisfaction. Okay, these are key concepts in marketing. Value satisfaction, meaning to say the sum of tangible and intangible benefits you can you and the cost to the buyer, no? Tangible and intangible. Maybe you paid for that, and maybe there are benefits that you don't actually have paid for that, but you enjoyed it. You enjoyed it anyway. This is the central marketing concept. Okay, this is also what value chain analysis intends to study. What is of value to the customer? What is of value to your supplier? If the value is like loyalty, then sell loyalty to your customer. If the value is like, for example, hope of becoming somebody, hope of becoming beautiful, then sell hope in your product. Like, for example, Avon, like, for example, what have you, for example, uh, uh, Louis Vuitton apparel or bags or whatever. You're not selling actually the leather bag or whatever perfume brand of perfume. What are you selling? For example, Louis Vuitton, you're actually selling what? Prestige. Okay, wow, Louis Vuitton bag, huh? And then what about say, for example, Avon cosmetics? They're selling cosmetics, but in the market they're not selling cosmetics. You sell the what? You're selling to your customer hope. Hope of becoming beautiful because that is of value to them. Okay, if that is the key turning point, key selling point of the product, then by all means sell that to the customer. Do not sell cosmetics. No, you sell hope, the function of your product, what your product can do to the customer. It will become a different you, and then you dress him with the cosmetics by Avon or whatever is the lauder, for example. Then that will create a different he or different she, and then your product just make a sell in the market. That is value. Okay. Another core concept is value to satisfaction. Satisfaction reflects the person's judgment on the product. Okay. What is the very quick and very simplistic definition of satisfaction? Let me just challenge your imagination. What do you think is the very simplistic and very direct uh, indicators of satisfaction? Might say whatever quantity or etc. But what is the very simplistic way? Maybe you have something in mind, but to me, the most simplistic and direct indicators or measures of satisfaction is repeat buying. If the customer go back again or visit your shop again, visits your your store again for the nth time, meaning to say the customer is satisfied. And look, what is it from the customer's perspective that is of value and that really triggered that level of satisfaction that he is getting from your product, and maximize that particular characteristic or nature of your product. Okay. Another key concepts you need to be familiar with conducting a rapid market assessment is exchange and transaction. If you do market assessment, you need to understand the exchange involved in obtaining the product and the transactions involved. And at least two things: value, agreed upon conditions, a time agreement, and a place of agreement. Okay, exchange. Exchange involves obtaining the desired product from someone by offering something in return. Okay? Exchange can only be realized with transaction, meaning to say their ability to buy or their tendency to be, to be attached to the product. And that will result immediately to change or exchange. And a transaction involved and the transaction involves at least two things of value: agreed upon condition and a time of agreement and a place of agreement. Okay, you have condition, a time of the agreement, and a place of the agreement. Where? Location, very important. Okay, another key concept is competition. Competition is the act of process or the act or process of trying to win something for someone else. It's something you get to win. It includes all actual potential rival offerings and substitute a buyer might consider. So, in other words, if you win, in the competition, meaning to say you are competitive. Another question, what is the simplistic indicators or uh, say manifestation of your that your product is competitive? You say your product is competitive. Why? Because this product is durable, because this product is, yeah, it can be durable for like for all intents and purposes, but what, are you able to make a sale? Well, it depends. But how do you measure that your product is competitive with respect to your other competitor of the same kind of product? What do you think is the simplistic measure of competitiveness from the vantage point of the customer or from the vantage point of you as the seller? My direct answer to that is you are competitive if you what? What do you think? If you can outsell your competitor. What do you mean by outsell? Meaning to say, if your competitor can sell 50 units, if you are competitive, you are able to sell 100 units or maybe 50, 150 units. Meaning to say, you can outsell them. You can sell more than your competitor. Then, only then, you can say your product is competitive. And then look for that characteristic that makes you competitive and maximize it without overlooking your maybe inherent weakness or inherent say downside. But what is it that the customer is looking from your product, and maximize it in order to stay competitive in the total in the entire landscape of competition. The process of marketing is complicated. That only producing essential product for customer is very important. Now, marketing is all about understanding what people need theoretically. You know, these are from basic stuff from Cutler, no? Philip Cutler. And what else? When you say marketing, producing the right products to satisfy needs and wants of your customer, offering the right product at a place where people can buy them, and at a price, quality, and they find attractive, and selling the price at a profit. You can be a master of one, two, three, four, but in the final analysis, you don't generate a profit. You're not an effective marketer, because marketing, the real measure of marketing, what's the real measure of marketing? The real measure of marketing is that when you push your product in the market, you generate value addition. You generate the gross margin that is desired from your product, because the secret of marketing is to delight your customer. Profit is just a natural result of a highly marketable product. It will just be a natural result. You can sell everything you want, but if you at the end of the line you cannot generate a reasonable return from your product, from your selling operation, then your marketing is has failed. Okay, has failed miserably if you sell them at a loss. No, so that is marketing. That is marketing. So it's really generating the value addition, meaning to say you are able to communicate what is that of value to your from your product, and you are able to serve exactly the needs of the customer, and it will translate into revenue, into profit, by really uh, staying on top of competition. What makes agribusiness market unique? Because we are in the agribusiness curriculum or agribusiness program, then we might as well look at agribusiness market. What makes agribusiness market unique? Okay, remember that in agribusiness, the product moves along the value chain. It faces various factors like climate, logistics, say you have infrastructure, etc. Meaning to say the agribusiness system is sensitive to many variables. Now, key features characteristic agricultural market in uniqueness of agribusiness market. One is short-term price volatility, meaning to say very erratic price trend. Even in one day, it can change a lot. Even in less than 1 week, the price can flip flop actually. So this is something that uh, entrepreneur is really challenged, because how are you going to deal? How are you going to really stay on top of competition and develop your, say, a good market, market strategy? And then not only like the fluctuation or volatility of price, but there is also what we call a seasonality of products. So it doubly complicates the market for this type of product, because it's seasonal. There are times that it's in abundance, but there are also times that's in shortage. It's not available in the market. How are you going to do that? How are you trying to harmonize? Because you cannot postpone consumption if it is really what? If it is really a particular a need of the customer. Well, that is the challenge of an agribusiness commodity or agribusiness product. Demand also contributes to price changes, because if there is less of this product, it will surely create inflationary pressure. And another thing, agribusiness market is confronted by high risk. Products are so perishable. The perishability of the products, we need to say, it gets spoiled very quickly. So not naturally, it will it will uh, it will really create, it will complicate, say, the distribution process. Not only that, not only highly perishable, but it's also, say, biological, in terms of its biological nature will also endanger the product that moves along the value chain, because from the upstream end, maybe from the farmer's end, you might not have observed damage or infestation of uh, pest, but as it moves along the chain, because of the biological nature of the life of the pest, it will also develop in terms of its biological cycle. And at the end of the line, very close to where the customer is, you can already see visible damage from infestation, and that will create marketing risky, because those damage will no longer create a market. In other words, that will be rejected in the market, and it's an additional cost to whoever is handling that particular product. High risk because of climatic change also. And then not only high risk, but high transaction cost of the marketing cost. Meaning to say, because of so many intermediaries, so many imperfections in the market, transaction cost is very high. Meaning to say, there are like, say for example, a lot of profiteering or a lot of rent seeking, meaning to say, people who are enriching themselves at the expense of somebody else without having to spend for anything. Like for example, they're just profiting from the inefficiencies of the market. If the market were efficient, they will not survive in the as part of the intermediary. Meaning to say, for example, there are fixers now taking advantage of the poor knowledge of the seller about quality and about the price. So there are fixers that will just bridge you to the next segment, but actually they are profiting a lot already. No, they are profiting a lot. So high transaction cost because of the inefficiency of the market. Okay, so if there are calamities, it makes the road infrastructure very very unpassable. So what happens? It will push the hauling cost up, and already becoming part of the price of the product. Now, now understanding all these key concepts will facilitate us in understanding the whole picture of the market. Okay, whole picture of the market. Now, that is like a very quick articulation of the uniqueness of agribusiness market. What are the key concepts, the core concepts of marketing that needs to be properly understood in order to conduct a logical and also a tangible RMA. Now, I'm going to emphasize or maybe articulate to you today a methodology of doing an RMA from Hans Snyder uh, uh, and others. Hans Snyder et al. I think undated, but actually this was conducted in Vietnam, and also it's a product of research somewhere in the early, like oh, in the mid, I mean, in the early, say for example, 2005, something like that. No, now you can find similarities in both research methods and in arming other approach. No, now first is we look at it. If you conduct an RMA, we look at it from a step-by-step procedure. This is actually coming from Hans Schneider uh, result of research. One is area selection. Identify the geographic scope. Okay, for example, if Cebu, if Ormoc, something like that. And then what product particularly are you going to select? Okay, and then design a rapid market survey. Use representative sampling method. Okay, a representative sampling, meaning to say you have enough observation that you can be confident that it is a representative of that particular segment of the market. Okay, I will tell you how to do a representative sampling, an interview in RMA, and then design a rapid market survey. Okay, researchers define the data saturation at the point where no new information or themes are observed from the data. Remember, okay, you have designed a sample. For example, if you have how many? You have 20 traders. Okay, now remember that sampling procedure is based on segment. That means to say each segment, the number of traders in that segment constitutes a population of that. Say for example, uh, say for example, space of respondents. Now, if that is a population, you need to sample. You need to sample sample that characterize representativeness. Now, how will you do the sampling? Okay, how will you do the sampling? Now, there is a methodology that will satisfy the representativeness and the say the sufficiency of the data. Now, the data gathered can be in an interview or something like that, but how do we know it is, for example, sufficient? Now, if there are 15 traders listed in the, in the, uh, say for example, in the, or even if, like for example, 30 traders. So, how will you do representative? Say, how will you do sampling? Are you going to interview everybody? Maybe not. Because if you interview everybody, it will not only be costly, but it will be time consuming. But how do we know that we have interviewed enough that who are representative of the entire node of the respondents? Say the technique is like this based on experience. You interview maybe one, two, three, four. At the fifth interview, maybe you interview the sixth, the seventh, and then observe the trend of the data. Once the data and information in terms of its content and its nature and its value and everything is already repetitive, the volume, the quality, the price, it's repetitive, and all the other considerations, then you have, then and only then you can say you have reached the saturation, or you have reached the point where there is no new information in what you are doing in your interview, and you have reached a representative sample already. Okay, then design a rapid market survey. Methods of data collection, it could be, focus discussion, market visit. It's semi-structured depending on the technique they are going to use. The data gathering, the interview, then you can do multiple research, and this, the normal stuff in data gathering. And then the quality of the data and information gathered will depend on the ability of the researcher to interact with the respondents. You have to be conversant. Pursue some information that are not clearly articulated so that you can see the dynamics of all data gathered. And then analysis of data can be done by trend analysis or market volume analysis, or you can see projections, gross margin analysis, and of course, Porter's five forces model. And then, of course, you consolidate and do the report writing. Okay. So that means to say, very importantly, if you follow those steps, very, very specific and very particular, is to determine how how uh, how uh, how enough is enough in terms of interview. Okay, we have experienced, for example, as listed, there were about how many? 12 wholesalers. We interviewed one wholesaler, the second wholesaler, the third wholesaler. It came out na pare-pareho lang ang information gihatag sa second and the third wholesaler. And these are independent wholesalers. And then we interviewed the fourth, the same nature of the data. Then we did not interview anymore ano, the fifth wholesaler. Why? Because the information that we need are no longer changing. The volume, the price, the quantity, the quality, all those very important, say, parameters of competition are already uh, consistent from one respondents to another. Then we stop at the fourth and fifth interview. Okay, so we have decided. I think we have done enough because when you analyze the total volume in the market, these guys actually know they have a projection in terms of how much volume is circulated in the market. These guys knew exactly because they have knowledge in terms of how much volume their competitors are holding, something like that. So these are things that are common in conducting an RMA. Remember, an RMA is done in order to guide investors or venture capitalists in terms of the appropriate strategy and the timing in entering into a particular market and what are the growth area in that market. Okay, the next methodology that we need to look at is what you call as the Porter's five forces model. Excuse me. Porter's five forces model suggests that there are five competitive forces. Okay, but by the way, this Porter's five forces model, like coming from Michael Porter, the 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 author of the competitiveness analysis in competitiveness and value chain analysis. This is a pretty relatively old model in 1985, but is still applicable this time. Okay, according to Michael Porter, there are five competitive forces that is going to determine in terms of being able to enter into the market competitively. These five forces are actually rivalry among existing competitors, threat of new entrants, threat of substitute, bargaining power of suppliers, and bargaining power of buyers. Okay, these are the five forces that Michael Porter identified. If you can master the dynamics and interaction of these five forces, you will be able to penetrate the market strategically. Okay, what are these five forces? You have threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, and then threat of substitute, and then bargaining power of suppliers, and rivalry among competitors. What is the dynamics in the market in terms of rivalry? Then you have first is the rivalry among competitors. We know already. Rivalry meaning basically attempts to outcompete the other firms or vice versa. Meaning to say, what are the competitive forces operating, and who is winning and who is losing and why? Something like this. We have to describe what happens to the dynamics of competition. Now we also you look at how they compete and the basis or dimensions of competition. No? The basis and the dimensions of competition. Okay, and then we also have in rivalry. We also need to see how customers can switch brands or product. Is it easy or is it very sticky? Something like that. If it is easy, then why? And what is the strategy that can hold customer very long? No? And then also when uh, getting out or entering into the industry, is it easy or not? Because there are industries that difficult to get out because of huge un, unliquidated or unserved, like for example, markets or investment. We need to say you have not recovered your investment yet. So it's very difficult for you to get out of that particular industry. Okay. Another variable aside from rivalry, we have threat of new entrants. Of course, when there is a market that is profitable, there are also, there would it would what it would encourage new players to enter into that market. But as an existing player, that is the last thing that you can probably think of, because as much as possible you want to maximize profit. That's why you kind of prevent others from entering into your industry. But you cannot do that in real terms, because this is a free country. Anybody can get out and get into the particular enterprise and matirang matibay kung sino ay makaginansya, no? Threat of new entrant. Barriers to entrant are dependent on, for example, supply side or demand side. Meaning to say, entrant must enter into the industry on a large scale. Kung there is a huge investment required in order to be able to enter into that market, then it will deter, it will prevent new entrant. No? Kailangan malaki ka talaga before you are able to penetrate in that market. The other is the demand side benefits, where buyers' willingness to pay for a company's product or with other buyers who also patronize the company. Meaning to say, the customers willing to shift to your particular product if you are a new entrant? Well, it depends on what is your unique selling proposition. Another is customer switching cost. Is it easy to switch to another product? No. If it is easy, then you need to think twice before penetrating and competing with the existing competitor. And then the capital requirement also is very important in the competition. Then, of course, not only capital requirement, there are also industries that are regulated by the government. Meaning to say, the government will not allow that the particular industry will have so many players, and before we know it, all these players will go bankrupt at the same time, because the presence of the players has exceeded the measured capacity of that industry. That industry is only able to support maybe 10 or 12 players inside that very small packet of like profitable enterprise. But there are hundreds of you entering into the same industry, and of course you will cannibalize each other, and before you know it, you will go into a dog eat dog situation, and all of you will go bankrupt at the same time. Now, the five forces model is includes lowering the price, adding new product features, or offering financing. If you don't do that, the other areas of Porter's five forces model is the threat of substitute. Okay, so that means if there is an impending threat that customers will substitute that with a more affordable and a more accessible product, then that makes really rivalry very sticky also. You have to think twice before entering into the market if the threat of substitution is very real. Naala, mo substitute na yun, no? And then threat of substitute products, meaning to say, that will impact on how the product appears to different customers in the industry. Okay, so the the higher the number of substitute for your product, then the higher also is the threat of that product substitute. Okay, now the threat of substitute, the buyer's cost of switching is also one factor. No? And then you have here the bargaining power of suppliers. Meaning to say, are the suppliers organized that they can do some kind of bargaining position, increase the bargaining position? Because, for example, if you are in the business and your product is substitute can be substituted very quickly, well, you can really find yourselves eroded miserably or completely without having you notice, because your product is substitutable by other related products. Okay, so that is one thing, no, for bargaining of suppliers. And then the suppliers offer also a differentiated product, meaning to say suppliers can just uh, offer a different products that will actually increase their bargaining position. We need to say the suppliers regulate their volume supply in order to say, for example, study the reactions of the the customers. Now, the other thing is the fifth factor is bargaining power of buyer. Meaning to say, how can we bargaining position be increased? Now, there are situations that buyers are organized. When they are organized, they can even dictate the price because they are the ones who are what? Who can buy your product. And everybody is really just hurrying to get a larger share of the profit pie brought about by you as the powerful buyer. Okay? So it can repeat itself in terms of profitable venture. Now, buyers can exert more pressure in the firms under the following circumstances. One is, there are few buyers, yung sila lang yun na mamalit, then they can control the market, taas lang market, and they are also organized. Very importantly, whether buyers or suppliers, the extent of organization is very important. And then, if the buyers are particularly important to the seller, then it will also trigger uh, just a natural benefit to the buyer if they're organized and the say for example the buyer or the say your store for example has limited options in terms of replacing the buyers. Okay? The tool is mostly used to determine the firm or industry profitability for the five forces model. Okay? If we relate the two, we can say that most profitable player in the market system has high control, no? If we kind of integrate our efforts. Now, consider small-scale farmers and collector. Remember that as a value chain player, these actors are both suppliers and customers because you do supply, that is your customer, and you do buy input, that is also your customer. Okay, you as the at the buying end, and then you at the supplying end. So that is really a very close relationship. Collectors usually have the upper hand in the bargaining position as they dictate the price. Okay? The collector, parang, laway rin po muna, makapaingos yung presyo. Okay? So, this would mean a loss in their months cultivating. Hence, they need to agree to traders' buying price. Okay. So, very importantly, there is collusion. You need to study the extent of collusion. Sabot-sabot ba among the players in the market to dictate the price? That is, ano. And this is shown in this particular, in many graph, for example. By analyzing all five forces model, all nodes of the value chain, you gain a complete picture of how competitive each value chain player is. Okay? So, it all depends on how you represent each player. Kung major player, dako ka circle. Kung like minor player, maybe gamay-gamay yung circle. So that we will know that one is a large corporation, this one is for example, a uh, result or study from graduate students. Okay? So, in other words, with RMA and with Porter's five forces model, you are now able to what? Study and also understand the whole dynamics of the market and address appropriately where your enterprise can enter into the industry strategically and positioning yourself to be what? To be at the upper hand, okay, upper hand of competition in order to generate more profit. Okay. So next time we will look at what? We will look at corporate social and ethical responsibility. Very interesting topic class because this will determine how this is going to play in terms of shifting competition, in terms of focusing on the target market, how this can play, for example. No? So we will stop up to there and see how best we can probably uh, say enroll or how best we can probably make sure that our entry into the market is very strategic. No? So with that note, I thank you, and I would say uh, our time together has been a very fruitful and a very rewarding.